Where can you hang out in Queenstown, take a tour of where Lord of the Rings was filmed, and taste some of the best honey in the world? That would be New Zealand. And speaking of honey, bees have always fascinated me because of their role in nature. In a way, they are much like our own immune system. They go after predators and protect the queen from bacteria, viruses, parasites, and even fungus with the compounds they make. It is these healing compounds that I think everyone should know more about. So today, I'm talking with fourth generation beekeeper Philip Cropp, who owns and operates Nelson Honey, a premier lineup of bee products that focus on skincare and health and wellness. Also joining me is Caleb White, the National Sales Director and Educator for Nelson Honey on the U.S. side. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Hi there.
Yes, good morning. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for being here today, because I wanted to bring you in to dive into this topic about the healing powers that bees provide. You know, Sunflower Shop has sold four main ingredients over the last 50 years. We've sold the honey, we've sold bee pollen, propolis, royal jelly, of course, beeswax and some other things too as well. But from our customer point of view, Philip, could you give us a crash course about these basic ingredients that bees produce?
Yes, the bees are really clever little insects. They live in a hive and they live as a group, and they're cold-blooded, so they have to eat honey to keep warm. But in a hive, you get between 20 and 50,000 bees, and they congregate together. So over the summertime, when all the flowers are out, they go out and they pollinate these flowers in the process of collecting honey and pollen for the hive. So the beehive needs two main sources of food, and one is carbohydrates, which is sugars, and that comes in the form of nectar, and they turn that into a honey. And the other one is proteins and minerals, and they get that in the form of pollen. So they collect pollen and nectar from flowers and then take it back and store it in the hive. And in the process, they get a few other products that we were going to talk about too. One is Propolis, which they collect, which is an antibiotic that they put around the hive to keep the hives sort of in a good condition. And it helps to break down any bacteria that shouldn't be in the hive. And they do feed to their young bees royal jelly, and then they have a special jelly or food that they produce to feed to queen bees, and that's called royal jelly. So they're the main products that bees produce and use in their hives,
which can all benefit our health, right? And that's what we want to talk about today. So let's start with, everyone knows about honey. So over the last few years, more research is surfacing, though, about the great benefits about a particular type of honey called Manuka honey. So what is all the buzz about this special honey?
Yeah, well, honey's been around for a long time. It's mentioned in all the old literature books, and there's three different religions in the world all have it in their books, that honey's a good food, it's a good balanced food, it's good for energy, and it's got lots of other little pieces or parts of it that help us with our health if we eat it. So it gives us energy. It's made up mainly of sugars, but it has a lot of the simple sugars as well as the complex sugars, and it's got a lot of other enzymes and other things that the bees put into it when they're processing it, and they're changing it from a nectar into the honey that they store. And so over time, people have always known that honey is good for you, but now they're finding some honeys are really special, and Manuka was one of those honeys that was they did a lot of research on in the early days, and it's come out as being a really special honey that we produce in New Zealand, Australia.
Yeah, that's what's nice about it, though, is the research is starting to prove what a lot of people already knew about the benefits of this Manuka honey, right? And so that's what's really cool, is that we're getting more science to back up what we sort of already know.
Yes. So we were very lucky in the early days. That was about 1980s, that we had a very clever scientist here called Peter Molan, and he did a lot of research on honeys, and he looked at what properties were in honeys and what that we hadn't looked at before. I suppose most beekeepers just looked at the sugars and they looked at all the big ingredients, but they weren't looking at some of the smaller ones. And then Peter found that there was a property there that really helped when he put it on a petri dish with some bacteria. It killed the bacteria, and it killed them very fast. It was faster than some of the other honeys that we had in New Zealand, or very fast compared to the other honeys. And then he found that if you put it on a wound, it helped clean the wound up very quick. And he got to a stage where he was going to hospitals and he was treating different people that had these wounds, and they wouldn't heal up with just ordinary medicines at that stage. So he'd put some honey on and in a bandage, and a lot of them would start to heal up because the honey has that ability to it won't let bacteria multiply, and it kills the bacteria.
That's right. That's right. I have some friends too who's claimed it's helped with impetigo on their skin when they put it on, and it helped them overnight, they said. So, I mean, there's a lot of great stories that we're hearing about how it helps with skin issues, especially. And we'll talk about why here in a second. But I was very curious on the label of most of your honeys out there. It says on the label of most Manuka honeys, it does say product of New Zealand. Is this where all Manuka honey comes from?
Yeah, Manuka is a native plant in New Zealand, and there's about 12 different varieties of it grow. And there's varieties in Australia as well, but it doesn't grow in other parts of the world unless it's been moved there or transplanted there. But it grows wild, and it's one of the plants that when we get a big area that is diverting back to native trees, Manuka is one of the first plants that comes up, and it protects other trees to grow up through the canopy, and develop and grow as well. So in some ways it grows just like a weed because it's used to our soil types, and it grows on all different sorts of soils. We can have a soil that's very good, lots of goodness in it, and a Manuka will grow on it. But we can also have soils that are very bare. There's not many other plants growing, and Manuka will start to grow there. But it also has the ability to pick up some of the goodness out of the soil. And some of the plants are very high in their ability to do this, and they pick up an MGO, which is what we test for, which is another chemical that is used for a marker. That's one of the ones that Peter Molan discovered. That was the marker or the chemical in the Manuka that was helping it to have these special properties that other honeys could do a little bit, but they couldn't do the same level that Manuka could produce.
And that's what you're talking about, Philip, right? When you're talking about MGO, is that the number we're seeing on the label of Manuka honey products?
Yes, it stands for the methyl glytho, which is the active ingredient in the honey. And we get all these, we bring all our Manukas in and we get it tested, and they tell us how much is in there, methyl glytho, and we get a number. So usually it can be quite high in some areas. In other areas, it's just sort of average. So we get all the drums and we process the Manuka. Manuka is a hard honey to process. And in the old days, the beekeepers didn't like it because it was a very thick honey. It was like a jelly, and it didn't come out of the combs nicely. It stayed there and it didn't want to move. So we have to prick it, and we use a machine that sort of puts a little finger into each cell and stirs it up to make it runnable. So when we spin it out, it can come out of those cells and be used. And so we process it that way, and we try and keep it separate to other honeys. So all honeys come in stages, and the Manuka will start flowering on a certain day, and we'll try and make sure we don't get any of the early honeys mixed up with Manuka, and we take it off before the later honeys come in. So the plants over the season will lay in their allotted sort of gaps in the timetable.
So I'm sorry, Philip. I'm trying to understand that for a second. You're saying it's almost a seasonal thing when you can draw the Manuka honey, or how? When you say you take it out before other honeys, what does that really mean?
Well, we go around our honeys, and we get some of the earlier ones, like the willow honey comes in very early in New Zealand. So in September we have willows all flowering, and the bees collect willow honey, and then the barberry and hawthorn and honeydew. But the Manuka starts to flower about the 10th of December, and it does it every year. It's very close every year. Some years it's a few days late, and some few days early.
Yeah.
So we try and keep all the honeys before that date separate to the Manuka.
I did not know that was a seasonal draw. That's very interesting to know. Very cool.
Yes. So the Manuka will flower, and then it might be finished. It might flower for 3 weeks. It might go on for 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And as soon as it finishes, we get it off quick so it doesn't get diluted down by other honeys coming in later in the season.
That's right. That makes perfect sense. So going back to that MGO activity, because I think this is very important for viewers to understand, what does that really mean to them when they see that number of 12 or 300 or whatever the number is on the Manuka honey? What does that mean to the consumer?
Yes, it means that if it's only got if it's a low number, it's got the right chemicals and got the right makeup, and it could be, perhaps very strong Manuka. But if it's got a high number, that means it's come from an area that's producing really lots of activity in the honey, and that makes it stronger. And so we put those numbers on so people know it's been tested. We get all that done into the laboratory that's independent to us, and they give us a certificate for each batch we're doing.
Yeah.
And we put that on our webpage. And so each lot of honey has got numbers. And so if we get an area and the honey comes out at, say, 300, we try to keep that away from the area that's got 100.
Yeah, sure.
People buy different lines of honey.
That's right. But the higher the number is, you're saying the more activity, or can you say like the more antioxidant benefits it has? Is that what we're saying with a higher number?
Most of the research was done on the antibacteria factor of the honey. So it means if you've got one that's got a high number, it'll kill those bacteria a lot quicker than one that's got a lower number.
Got it.
What I say, let me just interject here real quick, is when people buy honey from me over here in the States, we, like, our lowest grade honey is a 30 MGO, and we go all the way up to 300, and we're working on some higher grades right now as well. If they want to put the honey on their toast or some crackers with cheese, I say, no, you put on the 30 MGO. But if you want to start using it for the medicinal properties of the honey, I tell them start maybe at 100 and above. So obviously, the higher the number, the more medicinal properties that honey has, and the more powerful antibiotic and antibacterial properties that honey has. Is that right, Philip?
That's right. Yes. So if you've got a very bad sore on your leg and you want to put an ulcer and you want to put some honey on it, the higher the number, the quicker it'll, the better it should work on that.
Yeah. I've had testimonials from a clinical resource nurse over here. We were selling some honey one time, and she said, I've actually used your Manuka honey on some of my patients, and they have, these people are in bed sick, they've got bed sores. And she said, one of the sores, I could even put my thumb in their back. That's how bad their bed sore was. Wow. And she said, I used the Manuka honey and I put it on there as a wound dressing. And actually, a lot of hospitals and medical places over in the States now are using it as a wound care dressing as well. I can go to CVS pharmacy right now and buy a wound care dressing with Manuka honey in it. Wow. Anyway, she said, after I used this Manuka honey on my patient for a while, within a week or two, these bed sores had almost totally disappeared, and that's without any other intervention, and that's just because of how powerful this Manuka honey is. So
how healing it is. That totally makes sense. Now, I got to ask you a question, Philip, because my wife knew I was going to talk to you today, and we have a small dog with skin allergies, and she was always wondering, can you put Manuka honey on a dog for like a skin problem, like a little rash?
Yes, there's no reason it would work. It works on all skin, so
that's what I would thought. Yeah,
work on the dog as well.
Yep, I have another. Sorry, just to interject here again, really quick.
No, please.
I have another one of my clients, and she raises skunks. She buys so much honey off me. I'm not kidding. She buys the Nectar Ease. Obviously, we can talk a little bit more about the Nectar Ease and different kinds of honeys that we have.
No, we need to talk about the skunks first. I got to understand. I've never heard of someone raising skunks, and I forgive my ignorance, but what's the purpose of that?
I don't even know her name. She's just the skunk lady to me. Yeah, and there's actually a large community of people in the United States that raise skunks, and they have these big conferences, and they all get together. And I sell a lot of one of our brands, which is Nectar Ease, one of our brands of honey to them, and they use it for their skunks, and they say that their skunks' health are improving, and they're moving around better, and they're more active, and they're healthier after they have started giving their skunks this Nectar Ease. So
that
there's
is interesting, very interesting,
really great, awesome properties about this honey that we want.
Yeah, that's a really exciting honey. That's one of the ones we developed by mistake, and it just grew and grew. It was when I was starting beekeeping, I was playing around because I used to be an electrician, so I knew how wires work and magnetic fields, and how to get shocks and not get shocks. So I was giving these bees a shock, and they dropped their venom into the honey. So I gave some honey away to one of the neighbours. He came in one day and he said, "Look, Phil, I want some old honey to give to my deer." And I said, "Oh, there's a bucket over there." And I thought, "Oh, well, that gets rid of that honey with the venom in it." But he took it home and ate it, and it helped his arthritis. So he came back questioning me the next day and said, "What was in that honey?" And I said, "Oh, nothing, just honey." He said, "No, there's something in there that was different to all the other honeys I've had." And so I said, "Oh, I think it had some venom, bee venom from the bees." And so he gave it to a few of his friends, and it helped them too. And it started to grow from there. And that's the one we call Nectar Ease, and it's got about 25 parts per million of venom. It's got very low levels. It's like all honeys can have some venom in them, because bees in the hive only have to sting the comb or put some venom around, and it gets mixed in with the honey. But we decided to use 25 parts because that seemed to be where it worked the best. And it works on, like you say, on your skunks, but it also works on horses, and it works on dogs and cats. So we get lots of good testimonials from people that have given it to their dog or given it to an animal.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you about, Philip, especially with bee venom, because we had a staff member about 15 years ago who was suffering from migraine headaches, and nothing would ever touch it. And she went to this doctor who was doing bee sting therapy. And I thought that was the craziest thing in the world at the time. But it was the only thing that she claimed that worked for her. She would actually get stung on certain areas of her head to help the migraine headache go away. And that was just crazy to me. But at least from her point of view, it definitely works. So now that we're seeing more science and things about how bee venom can help with inflammation, I love the idea that you're putting it in Manuka honey on top of that. And that's your product called Nectar Ease, correct?
Yes. No, Nectar Ease to us is a very exciting product because it can help. We've done one clinical trial and it showed that 60% of people with arthritis can get some benefit from it, and it goes from a miracle to just helping. And then I have people come back and say, "I didn't think it was working, Phil, but when I ran out, all my pains came back." It just works so quietly behind the scenes, but it works on animals. And so people say, "Oh, you're trying to pull the wool over my eyes." No, it works on animals, and they don't know that I'm put anything in the honey or any venom's got in the honey.
That's right.
But and we've done, and it sort of grew and it's still growing, and we're trying to get more science behind it now.
Yeah, I think there should be, because we're hearing more stories of how it's helping people with inflammation. But I do wonder about this, though. I know a little bit about bees, and I know when they do, use their barbed stinger, they die. Yeah. But I hear that you have a technique that you use that's not killing the bees. So how can this be?
Yeah. Okay, we've got a system that gives them a small shock, and it's only about 40 volts. It's very low. You can sit on it and you'd never feel it. Or you put your hand on it, you just feel it. Okay. But it doesn't hurt the bees, because what they do is they get cross when they get a magnetic field or a shock, and they try and sting whatever's close. And then we have a piece of glass there that they can sting this piece of glass, and so they drop this venom onto this glass, and then at the end of the period, we scrape it off with a razor blade, because it dries very, very quickly. The moisture in the water evaporates out fast and leaves a white sediment on the glass. But it takes about 5,000 to 10,000 stings to make 1 little gram of venom. Wow, so that's crazy. They're very small amounts. And
so you're basically the bees. I'm sorry, you're just administering a small electrical shock, and that makes them sting the glass, and that's how you're collecting the bee venom?
That's how we collect it. And then they go away and they get over their salt they're in, and then they produce some more over time, and we can do it again, a fortnight later. But in a beehive, we've got 60,000 bees, and we might only get 10,000 to sting. Sometimes we can get up to 1 gram from a hive. Other times we only get half a gram. So.
That's incredible, Philip.
Yeah, that's a great thing about what we have as well, is we're not killing our bees, So obviously, all your viewers would know that when a bee stings you, it basically injects its whole insides into you, flies away, and doesn't live. So because we have a hard glass surface with that small electric shock, when it does that, it can't basically empty itself out onto the panel, because it's solid, and it just like Philip just said, it leaves it's like a watery substance. When it comes out, then it dries out, and then it becomes, like you said, a white powder.
That's incredible. I mean, but I have to say that totally destroys my image of seeing Philip in a beekeeper suit just milking bees to get their venom out.
It's a very slow process if you did it that way. But you got to remember the bee sting's got barbs all the way along it. So when a bee sting stings you or a person, the barbs get caught in the skin, and then that pulls the sting out of the bee, and some of the intestines come out with it, and the bee will die. But where it stings something like a glass, and the barbs don't go into the glass or can't get caught on the glass, the sting just stays with the bee.
That's
so he
amazing.
stings it, and he feels better because he's stung it. Then he goes off somewhere else.
Yeah.
And after a while, the body starts to produce a bit more bee venom, and so we can go back to the same hive perhaps a fortnight later and get some more venom if we wanted to.
Yeah. Well, I know the bee venom's being used much more than just putting in your honey, because I want to mention that we just picked up your Royal Nectar Bee Venom Eye Cream as well. And the testimonies on this product are already amazing when it comes to wrinkles and fine lines. So what I want to know, yes, Philip, is this the new Botox?
It is. It's very close. A lot of people using it instead of Botox, and it does work very quickly on the skin. The venom's a really amazing sort of ingredient because it has the ability to go through cells and take other chemicals or other products with it. So the venom can go through your skin very quickly as well and take other ingredients, and it helps that way. But the way perhaps I should just talk a bit about how the venom works, because the venom, there's been quite a bit of research done in later years, and the venom doesn't go and do the healing in the body. It stimulates the adrenaline gland to produce cortisone, and cortisone goes around the body in a very low levels. It's a steroid hormone that helps to clean up areas in your body that's got inflammation or crystals that are built up. And they've done a lot of work with dogs where they've been checking the blood, and they give them a bee sting, and then they see their level of cortisone go up in the blood, so they know. And we did a test with mice, and if we gave them a bee sting with water, that cortisone went into their blood as well. So it's really amazing and it doesn't affect humans, even though humans are eating with honey. It doesn't. They could have quite bad effects if they get a bee sting, but going through the stomach, some of the chemicals in the honey or in the venom get broken down by the acids. But for some reason, the melatonin in the venom still gets into the blood and then helps these glands to produce this cortisone. So the body does its own healing. It's not really it's triggered by the venom.
Yeah, it's just instigated by the venom, which makes sense.
Doing the healing. So
that's right.
It helps a lot of people with, arthritis, MS, and some of those.
Yeah.
A lot of your anti-inflammatory.
Yeah.
Problems,
I did a quick testimonial from a lady that bought some of our honey from a store over here, and she came in and she bought the Nectar Ease, and she was actually a tennis player. She played tennis all the time, and she said, "Oh man, I get extremely calf pain. I get sciatic nerve pain. I have pains in my knees and my ankles, and she loves playing tennis." And I said, "Well, you know what? This is what you need." And I held up a jar of Nectar Ease, and I said, "This is what you need. I want you to take this jar right now, take it home, come back and visit me in a few weeks, and let me know how it goes." And so she did that. She took it home with her. And I said, "Look, you just start with a small amount." So I always tell them to just take a teaspoon of it. Well, I tell them to start with a quarter of a teaspoon and then kind of work their way up. Quarter of a teaspoon, then maybe half a teaspoon. And if you're okay, increase it to 1 teaspoon at least once or twice a day. And so she did that. She came back. I was doing another demo in the store as well. And she came back a few weeks later and she said, "I want another jar of that honey." She said, "This stuff is amazing." She said, "I've got sciatic nerve pain." She said, and this is the honey Philip's holding up right now.
Nectar Ease.
This is one of our top sellers over here in the States anyways. And this is the only honey that we have that actually has the bee venom inside it. So of course we have other Manuka honey and different products with the venom inside it, but Nectar Ease, for us over here in the States anyways, is definitely our top seller. And I've got numerous testimonials from people that have bought the product that just love it and it's working for them. And, obviously we believe in the product 100%, and that's why we're here today. So
that's awesome, Caleb. I need to ask the obvious question though. What about people who are allergic to bees? Is this still a problem with the honey?
We've had no problems. We sold thousands and thousands of jars, and we found that people that are allergic do seem to go the opposite way to what the scientists say they should do. They should be getting more allergic to these things, but it tends to build up immunity in them. But we tell everybody, just start off quietly and just build up. we've had very few people with problems with it. Nobody's serious problems. And they just, if we tell them on the jar, we've just got, start off with, a quarter or half a teaspoon. And I find in New Zealand here, some men will eat it just about by the shovelful. They take big spoonfuls a day. And then I've got other ladies only need half a teaspoon, and it's all they need. If you get too much, you get a rash that comes out, sort of a red rash, which goes away if you stop eating it. And people have their own level. Not everybody's built the same. So, some people only need half a teaspoon or a third of a teaspoon. Others need perhaps 2 tablespoons.
Well, I think it's very unique.
It's really amazing because some people will come to us and say, like, we just heard that they say, oh, it took a while and then it just took, it just works quietly away in the background, and the next thing their pain's gone away,
Yeah.
But
exactly.
it works it seems to work with the clinical trial we did on about 60% of people got some help, and some got a lot of help, and others only got a little bit of help. So
everybody's different, right? That's for sure.
Yes.
Well, before I let you go,
that's one of our great products. Then back to your cream nuts one. These are the 2 creams we've got.
Yes.
And this is the one that we're talking about. It's called the eye cream, and it's really good for healing too. People were using it was designed for an eye cream, but now people are putting it on sores as well. So it's got that ability to go into the skin and go, and help perhaps further down into the cells inside the body.
Yeah, to help absorb it. So I think it's a definitely unique using the bee venom, because I mean the healing powers that the bees are producing is just amazing in all these different forms. So I definitely respect the bee community and definitely love the research that's coming out of there, showing how it can help us as humans and even our animals now. But before I let you go, Philip, I do want to highlight an old ingredient that is generating new fame again, and that is Propolis. This is something I take every day because I talk to so many people each and every day. I want to make sure I keep my immune system as healthy as I can. So I know Propolis contains over 180 different constituents. And so can you highlight again the main benefits of this wonderful product?
Okay, it's a sort of an extract that the bees collect off certain trees, and they bring it back. It's like a sticky gum sort of compound. And then they put it around their hives, and they put it in places where there could be an air flows through, or they want to fill up a gap, stop air getting into the hive, and
like insulation.
They put it all around the hive, and that seems to keep them well. It seems to help them to get over any bacteria diseases that come along, or any other product, any other ailments that could affect the bees. And so we collect that. We have to scrape it off, and it's quite hard to scrape off because it's really gummy, and then we send it away and it's processed. And when we collect it from the hive, it's got a lot of wax mixed with it, and then when they process it, they separate the wax from all the peptides and all the resins that are the propolis, and it's really good. Like when beekeepers can scrape a bit off the hive and put it in their mouth, and it makes all your teeth go yellow, and it's very hard to get rid of once you've got it on your teeth. But if you've got a sore throat, it cleans it up straight away. It just seems to. It's very high.
I mean, it's got so many benefits of antibacterial, antimicrobial, antifungal. I mean, Propolis is just sort of one of those things that covers a lot of different array of issues, especially like you said, the throat. And I've even had many clients who use it for heartburn. So it's actually been very successful for helping coat their stomach from any ulcerations or inflammation in the GI tract, and they've gotten good results with heartburn, which I would have never thought to use years ago. But now I use it all the time for that.
You're exactly right. Same with the Manuka Honey does the same thing as well. People with like you said, with the GI tract, with the gastrointestinal issues, heartburn, things like that, stomach acid, even just take a teaspoon of the honey, use that, and that'll calm everything down in there as well. So many benefits to these products. It's amazing.
There sure is. And that's what I love about the bees. I mean, we could talk all day about this topic for sure, but I'm definitely going to have you back again, Philip. But Philip, I thank you so much for being here today. I know you're in New Zealand right now, and Caleb, you're here in the States. So I appreciate you making the time to make this happen today. And I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Sure.
Yep. I've enjoyed it too. And thank you for your time. And we've got some pretty exciting products here, and hope people over there enjoy using them.
I know they will. They're going to definitely get the same benefits we're already seeing testimonies about. So again, thank you, gentlemen. Y'all have a great day. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Healthy Approach podcast. Be sure to subscribe if you like this podcast and help us spread the word by rating and sharing with your friends and family. If you'd like to learn more about Manuka Honey, Propolis, or even Bee Venom eye cream, go to sunflowershop.com. That's shop with 2 P's and an E, or visit us at one of our 2 locations in the Dallas-Fort Worth area.